It's nearly Christmas! And what better way to celebrate Christmas than by teaming up with a bunch of other epic history YouTubers and talking about our local history. So I'm stood here today in my hometown, and as you can see, it has some pretty amazing walls. In fact, these are some of the best preserved medieval walls in Britain, with over half of them standing today. So this is a history of Southampton, told through its defences.
If it were never dark, there couldn't be a bright day.
The history of Southampton begins first here in Bitton, where, in around 70 AD, the Romans built a town called Clausentum on the River Itchen, one of the two rivers which run through modern Southampton. In the 2nd century, this little town is fortified, an earth rampart is built with a wooden palisade on top and a ditch is dug. In the 4th century, the inner area is given its own stone walls, but in 407 AD, the Romans leave Britain and the town of Clausentum is soon abandoned. The next chapter of Southampton's history begins when a king of Wessex builds a new town on the other side of the Itchen. This town is named Hamwic or Hampton. Note, this is the reason for the county being named Hampshire and not Southamptonshire. It also becomes a large and important port, with a population of between 4,000 and 5,000, which is huge for a town of its time. However, in the 10th century, Hamwic begins to fall into decline. Some possible reasons for this are that the Itchen has begun to silt up, and also it has been the target for several Viking raids. Many people probably moved to Winchester, 10 miles up the road, or to a new settlement on the River Test, the other river which runs through modern Southampton. This settlement is also called Hamwic, but it's smaller. Following the Norman conquest, many Frenchmen come to live in what is by this point called Southampton. The Normans build a wooden Motte and Bailey castle in Southampton, which is rebuilt in stone in the 12th century. The town grows rapidly, probably having around 3,000 to 4,000 inhabitants by the 14th century. And the town now begins to expand outwards, and a shipbuilding industry emerges. By the 13th century, Southampton has been fortified with an earth rampart and a wooden palisade and ditch. And this is then replaced in the years 1260 to 1300 with a stone wall. Bargate and Eastgate are the first sections built. The problem with this wall, however, is that it only protects the landward side of the town, and this proves to be quite a problem. In 1338, a force of Frenchmen and Sicilians land on the Shingle Spit near St Michael's Square, while the people of Southampton are at Mass. They break into St Michael's Church, indiscriminately killing people that they come across. Some flee to the countryside, gathering with men from the surrounding area and preparing a counterattack. This counterattack is launched early the following morning, killing more than 300 of the attackers. The rest flee to their ships and sail away. The following year, King Edward III ordered improvements be made to the town's defences. It was neither quick nor easy for the town, but several new towers were added, and between 1378 and 1380, the keep of Southampton Castle was rebuilt, completing the improvements. The Bargate is given a new makeover with machicolations, holes for dropping stuff on attackers, being added. The walls are also extended to cover the seafront. By this point, Southampton is the 3rd largest port in the country, after London and Bristol. Things are looking up for Southampton. In the early 15th century, there are substantial modifications to the castle and walls to support the installation of artillery. The arrow slits on most towers are converted into gun ports. Catchcold Tower is built specifically to improve the artillery defences. However, this luck didn't last for Southampton. In the 15th century, wine trade with the Italians, which had been important for the city, fell into decline, and in 1531 it had lost its monopoly on the legal export of tin and lead. By the 16th century, Southampton had ceased to be an important port. By this point, the town had become incredibly run down. The walls were said to be overgrown with yews, elders, and such other weeds. The poor were using towers as dwellings, and local butchers would graze their animals on the hill under the castle's keep. In 1618, Southampton Castle is sold off to private owners who use material from the castle for other projects, including the repair of the walls. By 1707, part of God's House Tower here was being used as a prison, and one with notably poor standards. In 1750, Prince Frederick comes bathing in the sea at Southampton. He enjoys his time so much that he returns again the same year. And although he dies the following year, his 3 sons come to visit, and soon many rich visitors follow. The port has also picked up, with wine trade with Portugal now being an important thing. From 1770, Southampton begins to grow north of the Bargate. The population rises from around 6,000 in 1770 to to 8,000 in 1801, and improvements are made to the city. For instance, oil lamps arrive in some streets. In 1765, a passageway for pedestrians is cut through the east of the Bargate, and in 1775, Eastgate is demolished as it impedes the flow of traffic now coming through the town. In 1799, a wooden bridge is also built across the Itchen at Northam. Southampton Castle has survived as a ruin until 1804, when it is rebuilt into a Gothic-style mansion by John Henry Petty-Fitzmaurice in an act of historical vandalism that is quite common among the aristocracy at this time. The new structure fails to make a good home, however, and is abandoned within 15 years. The entire structure is demolished, leaving only the fragments of the castle seen here today. Soldiers passing through Southampton during the Napoleonic Wars means that Southampton is thriving again. However, Southampton has lost its place as a seaside resort to Brighton. The docks and shipyards of Southampton are expanded, and in 1822 a paddle steamer running between Southampton and the Isle of Wight is set up. Soon, other paddle steamers running to France and the Channel Islands are also set up, and by 1830, 100,000 passengers are passing through Southampton every year. The city begins to rapidly expand, and in the 1840s it spreads to Northam, then Fremantle and Newton, and then Shirley, St Denis, Portswood and then Swaithling, and after 1900 Bitton Park is built. In 1840 the railway reaches Southampton, causing the decline of the stagecoach industry. In that same decade the town gets horse-drawn buses, and in 1879 it gets horse-drawn trams. After 1900 these trams are electrified. North Atlantic trade begins to increase, and Southampton continues its role in the transport of passengers via sea. In 1912, a rather notorious Titanic sets sail on her maiden voyage from Southampton. In 1920, the boundaries of Southampton are extended to include Bitton, Sholing, Woolston, Weston, Peartree, Bassett and Swaithling. The thriving port means the city is able to escape the worst of the Great Depression. The city, however, does not get away so lightly during the Second World War. As a major port and on the south coast of England, Southampton is a major target. 631 people in the town are killed by bombs, more than 4,000 houses are destroyed and 11,000 are seriously damaged, causing a serious housing shortage in the following years. Around 8 million men pass through Southampton on their way to the front. Parts of the walls are used to mount searchlights and machine guns, and miraculously the walls managed to survive the war without obtaining any damage. In 1949, the city's trams cease to run, although the town continues to remain a major port. The boundaries of the town are expanded again in 1954 to include Millbrook, Redbridge, Harefield and parts of Thornhill. And in 1964, Southampton finally gets city status. In the post-war period, Southampton's walls finally get recognised for their historic importance, paving the way for the conservation work which has been conducted since. With the popularisation of air travel, the number of passengers travelling through the port falls, but we still have plenty of rich people travelling through our city so they can hop on a cruise. During the 80s, Southampton gets the Bargate shopping centre. I'm not entirely sure when it closed, apparently it was during my lifetime, but I don't ever remember it being open. In 1991 we get the Marlins, and in 2000 West Quay opens. In 2017, West Quay Watermark, a new expansion to West Quay, is opened, creating this epic space by the wall. If you speak to a local though, West Quay Watermark is much better known as the new West Quay. I only found out that was the official name when researching for this video. And that really takes you up to today. Southampton still has a thriving docks responsible for 23% of our air pollution in the city, and a population of 253,000, 10% of which is Polish, which I think is pretty cool, and 2 universities, as well as a long-standing rivalry with neighbouring city Portsmouth. But we all know Southampton's better.
Because dreams